I want to talk to you about our new app. Hang on, what am I doing here? I need to plug that in after. Called VoxAP. Now, before I do, I need to deal with the elephant in the room, which is that those of a slightly glass half empty demeanour will say, this is Simwood Mobile Plan B. Those of you that remember will know that we launched Simwood Mobile in 2014 and we took it away again in 2016. It was something of a compromise because Ofcom wouldn't give us an MNC back in 2014. So we spent a long time trying. In fact, it's fair to say we've been trying ever since. But we were forced to work with a partner MNO who customized their core for us, and technically it was awesome. We built a product that the SIM could register as a UAC against your PBX. You had shortcode dialing. We built a demo of the police's Tetra system in about 10 minutes using it. It was really, really powerful. One of our competitors has spent a substantial amount of money trying to replicate it, and last time I looked, got as far as sort of voicemail. But sadly, the MNO we worked with went bankrupt in 2016 and we lost the product. You might think, proving our point to Ofcom, that we should have had a mobile network code of our own so that we could port service to a different core, possibly even our own. But sadly, they didn't see it that way. But for those of you that think we've given up on mobile, let me be very clear. We haven't. This isn't Plan B. We have a fairly ferocious team of London litigators who are offering support to our current application with Ofcom. Last year I expected to do a hey one more thing and tell you our MNC. I kind of hoped I might do it this year. I'm pretty confident we're not far away now. And VoxAP works in parallel with that. It's not an alternative for it. After we lost VoxAP, I did a sort of one of these, I don't know what you call them, blog posts about an epiphany. And I'd always been shackled to things with wires because that's what we'd always had, and I insist on eating our own dog food, and much to the disgust of my partner, so does the household. But with Simwood Mobile, I was set free, and I don't have a chair in my office. I like to stand. And much to the annoyance of everybody else, I like to walk around, particularly when I'm on the phone. So being able to use a mobile was amazing. I could do that, and I discovered what people at other places that have just used mobiles for the last 10 years had known for a long time. So we set about looking at how we could achieve that in the absence of controlling the SIM. And I wanted a client that would work with Simwood. I wanted to just be able to put in some reg proxy credentials and have it just work. It needed to be secure, so that rules out 50% of the present, as it was at the time, supply. Needed to support TLS and encryption of the media in SDES as a minimum. Because it's generally going to be running over crappy networks that we don't control, it needed to handle that. It needed to support Opus, variable bitrate Opus with forward error correction, which, as you know, Simwood is unique in the marketplace in offering in the wholesale core. And it needed to handle NAT, because this thing could be dropping between different networks, all of which are doing NAT in different ways, 5-10 times on a different phone, on an individual phone call. And crucially, it needed to not kill the battery, because way back in the day, a mobile client had to run all the time and had to be registering. And it had to register more frequently than a desktop UAC, because your IP address could be changing so frequently, and that just hammered the battery. Now, Groundwire came close. Groundwire was something that I started using in 2016. It's fair to say I still use, or at least did, preceding VoxAP. It ticks off many of the requirements, sort of. So does it work with Simwood? Yes, it does. Does it support TLS and SDES? Yes, it does. But I don't give it a tick for security, given a privacy issue I'll come on to lower down the list. Does it support Opus? Yes, it does. Does it handle that? Sort of. And does it kill the battery? Well, no, it doesn't. But the compromise that you make is that all of your credentials that you put in the app are shipped to a third-party proxy, which then registers your equipment on your behalf. I don't know where that is. I don't control it, and I'm not entirely comfortable with that. But the main thing is, it's so darn slow. 20 seconds is a long time, or even 5 seconds is a long time when your loving partner has answered the phone to her parents using this thing that you make her use because that's your, that's your business, and it doesn't work. And she has to wait 5 seconds to hear her father talking about putting the bins out or something. That was the experience with Groundwire, and could never quite get to the bottom of it. So we thought, well, do we write our own? But actually, we're not app developers, and writing native apps is hard. And doing it the conventional way, are we going to be any better than a company like, say, Acrobats that has got a ton of resource and put a ton of time into building Groundwire? And I've listened to Mr. Jenkins drone on for many years. You'll get the pleasure tomorrow. He's a bundle of joy if you haven't seen him speak before. And I had an epiphany. Why not use WebRTC? WebRTC, it's secure. Security is mandatory in WebRTC. It's high quality. Opus, VBR, is the default in WebRTC. Does it handle NAT? Well, it's used to doing calls in a browser behind NATed connections. So yeah, it handles NAT natively. Does it kill the battery? Well, no, because you don't have to use SIP in the conventional way. It uses WebSockets, and the mobile OS can take care of the WebSocket side of it. And I'll come on to that particular bit shortly. So it seems perfect. So I'd like to introduce VoxAP and the fundamental difference in how it works. So on the left, we've got something like Groundwire. On the right, we've got VoxAP. Groundwire, you've got this registration from the mobile device to the PBX. You've also got your credentials going up to some proxy somewhere that's also registering to the PBX. And in the event of a call coming in, this PBX basically has 2 registrations and will send the calls to 2 places. One to the app, just in case it's awake. The other one to the notification service, which sends a notification to the phone saying, hey, wake up, there's a call for you. And then there's a bit of voodoo goes on that puts the 2 together and the call works. And 20 seconds of your girlfriend's eyes boring into you later, you have media. Contrast that with VoxAP, where it's WebRTC from the app to the core. So we've got this secure channel through which we choose to send SIP, but we don't have to. And we have secure media running in parallel, again from the core to the app. It's much simpler. We're using Dractio for this. So essentially, SimCon2 code is embedding Dractio on the client side. So you've got a secure WebSocket between the app and Dractio doing all of the SIP setup and any other interaction that's necessary. And then it's orchestrating RTP engine, which is providing the secure media. Now RTP engine we use elsewhere in the core. So this makes the mobile app very tightly integrated with our core service. And I talked about not killing the battery. Well, it doesn't kill the battery because there's no need for a registration at all. When you open the app, yes, it makes a call home and it passes certain identifiers for the app, but you don't actually ever need to open the app again. There's no notifications of the registration expiring. We know the identification of that app, and we can use the mobile operating system's notification service to wake that app up. And using Dractio, in the event of an incoming call, we can basically put that call not on hold in the sense you might think, but we can sort of hold that call in limbo until the app is awake and then complete it. So we're sort of going with the grain rather than against it, and the result of that is there's virtually no incremental battery usage. This app can just sit there until it's required, and it's really fast. It's pretty much natively fast, as hopefully you'll see in the moment if the demo gods are any nicer to me than they ever have been in the past. If I plug this in here, and Martin switches over. So what I've got my phone running VoxApp here, And just in case the demo gods treat me as they always have done in the past, I'm running a super alpha version of this, way ahead of any versions that you guys have in beta, for a feature that you're going to see shortly. So if it goes to crap, that's why. Can I have my phone up, Martin? While we're waiting for that, one thing when I got in a fluster before I forgot to say is that there's 2 toilets out there. There's no notion of male or female, although I'm fairly sure they'll become male only by the end of the day, so speak to the girls if you want a clean one. 60 people into 2 toilets in a 10-minute break doesn't work, so if you need to go to the loo, just help yourselves. Nobody will be offended, apart from Mr. Jenkins if you walk out in the middle of their presentation. That's plugged in.
It did show up very briefly.
Did it?
Yeah. Space.
Yeah, that should be okay.
But that was
it's not you, Simon. It's
Okay. Well, I'm going to press ahead. I'm going to press ahead anyway because we're already behind. So I don't know if they've done the audio side. What I've got is just a bog standard test phone here, and then this device is running both ground wire registering to a SimWood trunk and VoxAP using a VoxAP trunk on the SimWood core. And I've got 2 numbers. So I'm going to call one, the call will come in on ground wire. I'm going to call the other, the call will come in on VoxAP. Both will work, and one will be considerably better, just to sort of give you that confirmation bias up front. You may have media, you may have video, it depends how the guys get on. But okay, so you've got the audio. That's ground wire. Okay, let me try again. Okay, so I've now got the notification calls coming in through ground wire. I'm going to answer it, and you'll hear the audio at the other end on this phone. Note any delay in media being established. Hello, 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 hello. 4 or 5 seconds. That's pretty good. It does vary according to the network it's on, but just put yourself in my shoes where your other half is using this, and like I say, her eyes are boring into you during that period. It's a significant motivation to do things differently. So the other one. But beyond that, there's a few things we've got in the pipeline that I'd like to share with you. We've branded it neutrally. It's not called the SimWood app, it's called VoxAP. So you can happily refer your customers to it and give them the QR code to scan. However, I know that some people want to go slightly further. So basic white labeling will enable the app to reskin itself and change its logo to your colors and your logo when one of your QR codes is scanned. We know some people want to go slightly further than that, so we're quite happy to clone the app and put an app in the App Store in your name as your app, but with us effectively managing it. We do quite a lot in the financial space now, and the ability to have a secure communications channel with, say, a bank's call center is pretty powerful. So we want to work towards an SDK, so the VoxApp functionality can simply be embedded in third-party apps. And this is something we built for SimWood Mobile. The ability, when I said the SIM would register against your PBX, I was slightly lying. The architecture of SimWood Mobile was very similar to the architecture of VoxApp. Namely, there was a very simple and secure trunk between the mobile and the core, and then all of the intelligence was in the core. There was no sort of voodoo, no funny little Java apps running on the SIM card. So we built the ability for the core to register to your PBX, and then you saw via the core, you saw the SIM as your endpoint, just another UAC against your PBX. We want to do the same with VoxApp. So whilst at the moment it uses trunks and it's simple calls in, calls out that you never see, just like we had with SimWood Mobile, got the ability for you to see certain calls. You know, how we did it with the SimWood Mobile was you could see calls under, say, 4 digits. They went to the PBX, other calls went out to the PSTN, or you could see everything. So that's in the list as well. Peer-to-peer, we don't want to know stuff about you. We don't want to know stuff about your users. I mentioned that everything is encrypted coming into the Simwood core, but obviously we control the certificates at that end, and we're decrypting things going to the PSTN. The more we can do peer-to-peer with the applications controlling the certificates, the less we know, because we're not even in the path. I don't know how many of you saw my Astracon talk about default distrust. Anybody? Yeah? All right, a few more than that. You can go and watch that. I worked hard on that. I talk about a lot of this stuff, and I talk about Signal, and in particular the Signal protocol, which is frankly awesome. I mean, it's like an encryption geek's wet dream. It's not only sort of encrypting currently. It has, for example, forward secrecy and things. So when a particular key is compromised, it's still kind of secure. But the protocol is open source. So we want to embed the Signal protocol such that peer-to-peer messages are, effectively only readable by the two parties at either end. And by messages, we're talking objects. Those objects could be text, they could be images, they could be other things. This is one I got particularly excited about. I've yet to sell it to some of my colleagues, but every smartphone has such a wide array of communication capabilities, and for those of you that did see my Astracon talk, you'll see that Bluetooth is one of my sort of current interests. We're all in this room, but any of you messaging anybody else is going to see that message go up to the cloud and back down again, and you have to say, why? You're a known contact. Why can't that message go peer-to-peer? You're within range of one of these other communication methods. Why does it not just go directly between those devices? So that means people at a conference, for example, aren't dependent on the internet connectivity. 10 people buried under a multi-story car park aren't dependent on the mobile network that isn't there. So I can see great opportunity for that. And perhaps the slightly contentious one is we're going to be, not as VoxApp, but we're going to be putting a skin of this in the App Store available for end users. And there's various reasons for that, but we're committed to not competing with customers as best we can. And I view this as a positive, because any of the peer-to-peer stuff and the other features we're talking about rely on a network. The more users you've got, the better. It's no good having the best communications device, but you're the only person that's got it. You need your friends to have it. So whether it's under your brand or our brand or somebody else's brand, all of those different brands contribute to that network effect, and doing this helps grow that. But talk to us, because all of these priorities are flexible. We're getting lots of good feedback from the people that are using it. In fact, one guy's gone as far as me. It's his primary communication tool now. If you've spoken to me recently, it's only on VoxApp. And that's giving us lots of feedback. We want to hear what's important in it for you, and indeed, if there's something we haven't thought of, we'd love to hear about it. But there is one more thing. Phone calls are pretty rubbish, and that's probably a silly thing for somebody in my position to say. You could say a bit of a Gerald Ratner type statement, but as somebody that spent a good chunk of my career on at least kind of 2 phones all day, every day, I came to appreciate how stupid phone calls were. They're intrusive. Nobody, apart from maybe your nan, is sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. It always rings when you're doing something else. They're really inefficient, because a bit like some kind of bloated XML packet, you've got this preamble and whatever the fancy word for the bit at the end is of how you doing, do you have a good weekend, hope you have a nice rest of the day. The bit you're interested in the middle but nobody wants to admit is just the bloody point for the phone call, that one sentence that somebody is calling about. And as we all know, the quality can vary, because in any real-time protocol it requires a given level of bandwidth. You can't get the voice, you can't get the words 10 minutes later or 5 minutes or even 3 seconds later. If there isn't the bandwidth available, you lose them. So there's nobody here that has only ever had good mobile calls or good voice calls. And the current solution to that, I think, is pretty stupid. So we use text. It solves many of those problems, apart from perhaps the efficiency one. But I was somewhere the other day and I saw this woman walking down the corridor doing that really annoying apprentice thing of talking to her phone out here, and I thought she was on a call until I got close, and because she was holding the phone up in the air, I could see exactly what she was doing. She was using Siri to dictate a text message to send to her friend. I thought, what's that friend going to do at the other end? Maybe she's driving or something. Maybe she's going to have Siri or equivalent read that text message out. So we've actually got speech to text to speech, and that seems ludicrously inefficient given the speech at both ends is open to getting it completely wrong. Why not speech to speech? Speech is the most efficient protocol known to man. It's something we've done our entire existence. Why aren't we just reinventing the phone call and doing it in a different way? And this is a feature we want to bring to VoxAP that I'd like to share. I'm not going to bother plugging it in because it'll go tits up. But if I find Fraser, so for those of you that can see, Fraser, are you receiving?
10-4, Big Chief, 10-4.
Thanks very much. Get back to work.
Over.
Really efficient. There's no preamble. There's no sort of post-amble. Yes, the message is played out loud in real time, but think of how you handle text messages. That message could be listened to at a later stage. It's like a super efficient two-way voicemail, if you like, although voicemail I think is the worst technology ever invented. So you combine that with some of the peer-to-peer stuff that we're talking about, with some of the zero configuration networking stuff that we're talking about, and our position in the world and in the phone system, and integrate some of that perhaps with conventional phone calls. And I think there's something pretty powerful there for the future. So that's one of our focus areas with VoxAP, which brings me to the end. I've sped up quite a bit there because we were behind time. But any questions? Sam? Oh, hang on. I need to throw something at you. Where's it gone? Do you want to chuck it at him, Ben? I don't know if it will be working.
Hello?
Yes.
So we had some problems with, or some issues with Acrobat's
Yep.
QR codes in that essentially they're storing a password in plain text behind the QR code.
Mhm.
What have you guys done to improve security in that?
Not that. So the QR code effectively represents a hash. There's no issue with anybody knowing that hash because it is only ever used internally. It can only be used as a means of authentication in combination with other keys, i.e. from our system.
Thank you.
Go on, Craig.
So if somebody got hold of that you can regenerate it, I take it.
Yes, within the portal or the API, you can request a new one, which immediately invalidates the old one. They're also time limited, so where we want to get to with it is a bit like a domain. You can unlock it and lock it, because there's going to come a point where you want to add a second device, and just scanning the QR code that you had from 6 months ago could be deemed as insecure, perhaps, particularly if it's been sent by email or whatever.
But without having to
So,
re-authenticate.
correct. So the intention is you authenticate your first device, it gets locked, you try to scan a second device, and you can time unlock it from the other device or from somewhere else. The other thing I should say with this is that Dan Jenkins has been heavily involved with this, helping us on the WebRTC side, and we've now got Dave helping us on the Dractio side, as well as obviously the core team here. So we're throwing quite a bit at this, and we've got all the best brains that we can involved, and I'm trying not to mess it up too much. Any other questions? Craig?
So the other thing that you were saying about you releasing this yourself as not Simwood but Simwood.
Well, the app will be called VoxApp,
Right.
but if somebody looks deeply, they will see the publisher is Simwood.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my understanding is the purpose of that is the peer-to-peer side of things. That's to get that bit out there rather than.
It's for all of it. So if you want your end users to use VoxApp to make calls, using Simwood trunks, then it achieves that end. if you're, say, a hosted PBX provider, I know you're not, but others are, you could use VoxApp as a means of giving your end users a client to that through the SIP handoff. But the point is, you're just referring them to the app and giving them a QR code.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any more? No? Fabulous. I think we're at break now, aren't we, Fraser?
15 minutes. You
Yeah?
clawed back 15 minutes, 10-minute break.
Fabulous.